Okay, what up ladies and gents, it's your favorite Asian robot right here, hopefully your favorite official content creator for the First Descendant, and today, what I'm going to talk to you guys about is maximum range. Okay, this has been something that people have been misunderstanding lately, and I hope to clarify any doubts that you guys have about maximum range, okay? So, let's get into it, but before we do, let me just quickly show you a little something. The other day I received a comment. Now this person is just misinformed, so that's why I blanked out their name and profile picture, because obviously we're not trying to call them out. I think they just genuinely didn't know. But they told me on my Viessa video that please note the maximum expandable range for Viessa's first skill is 8.75 meters. 3.5 meters multiplied by 250%, which is the max expandable range on the skill, meaning that we're missing out on potential damage. This is unfortunately wrong, okay? Because if you were to go into my Viessa build right here, which is the exact same farming build I've shown you, you can see that according to the tooltip, the max range right now is 10 meters. Or rather, the range that I have right now is 10 meters. Why is this the case? Okay, because the person in question, what they've done, as you can see here, is they've taken the base range of 3.5 meters and multiplied that by the maximum expandable range. This is incorrect because the maximum expandable range, although it says 250%, does not mean that the max range you can get is 250% of the base. The 250% here refers to the total amount of modifier that you can stack onto the character while still getting benefits for range. If you exceed that total amount of modifier, you cannot get any further range, okay? So how do we actually work through the calculation to get your maximum range? How do we get from 3.5 meters to 10 meters? Well, what you have to do is you have to actually total up the amount of modifier that you are getting. So let's go through this step by step so I can show you how it's done, and then I'll show you visually how it works, okay? So skill expansion gives you 92.3%, maximize range gives you 94.4%, okay? So the calculation, step 1, is 92.3 plus 94.4 equals 186.7. Guess what? This calculation is shown here. Skill effect range, 186.7%. This is the total amount that you are expanding your range by. Therefore, you are getting a range of 10 meters on your first skill. The max expandable range is 250, which is pretty darn difficult to hit. In fact, I don't think it's even possible right now. There might be a way, but most of the time it's not really possible. Okay, and either way, you wouldn't want to do that because you're wasting DPS capability. Okay, so now you see that this total is 186.7%. Calculation number 2. When you multiply 186.7% by the base range of 3.5, you get 6.5345. This is rounded down to 6.5, okay? This is where the magic happens, all right? So how do you get to 10 meters? Calculation number 3. 6.5 plus the base range of 3.5 equals 10 meters. This is how you arrive at the 10 meter range with the modifiers that you have put in, all right? What you are essentially doing is taking the modifier multiplied by the base and then adding it to the base, okay? That's how the numbers work. This is true for any other character. You can test it for yourself. There are some things that can be expanded by range. There are some things that cannot be expanded by range, okay? So do be aware of that. Now, how does this work visually? Okay, I've shown you how it works mathematically, but now we have to see how it works in a visual sense. Okay, we have to see with our own 2 eyeballs. So if we're going to see with our own 2 eyeballs, we're going to use Valby for this. All right, I've got a test demo here, okay, which works really well. What we're going to start with is we're going to visually show you using the water play transcendent module. We're going to visually show you, based on the number of squares in the laboratory, how far each skill goes, okay? So we're gonna do that. Now, I've also got an inversion reinforced skill here, which we will max out later, because this is going to give you a skill effect range, okay, of, I believe, 12% extra. Let me just double check that for you. 0.8 multiplied by 15 will result in a total of 12%. So this will add 12% extra range on. It'll be necessary for the final calculation. Why is it going to be necessary for the final calculation? Because of one teeny weeny, insy weensy tiny little thing, okay? It's actually because Valby's max expandable range is a ridiculous 300% for water play. So you can actually stuff in as many range modifiers as you feasibly can, and you will see generally good effect. Okay, so let's begin. First, with no range modifiers, okay, we're going to take into account this center line and the crosses, the black crosses on the left and on the right hand side. So let's go through it step by step. Cast 1.
Here I go.
The first one is very tiny because there's no expanded range. It goes barely to the second square over there. Okay, it barely goes to the second square and it doesn't touch the black crosses at all. Okay, so that's step 1. Now let's introduce skill expansion. Okay, so we're going to go through this step by step. So you're going to see it visually. Okay, now we introduce skill expansion and cast. Take note that you have effectively doubled the range. Previously, you barely reached that second square. Now you've gone all the way to the third square, all right? Look, it went all the way up here, which is fantastic, okay? I can cast it again one more time to show you, but basically, okay, this is how far it goes. This is how far it goes, okay? So you've got 2 entire squares worth of length with a little bit into the third. All right, that's step 1. Now let's put in amplification control. Amplification control gives you less range than maximize range, but it's still a whopping 51.7%. Okay, so let's do that again. Let's cast. Boom. Do you see that we're now touching the black crosses? All right, with the water. And if you count the squares, 1, 2, 3. It's 3 whole squares, almost bordering on 4 right there. Okay, so that's a hell of a lot of squares. Okay, so that basically is what you're looking at. This is with amplification control. Now, you cannot put both amplification control and maximize range on it. But in order to visually show this effect, we're going to include not only maximize range, but we're also going to include, now this is just to show you the absolute maximum that we can chuck in. All right, we're going to include maximum range as well as frugal mindset. Frugal mindset has an extra 22%. Okay, so the total skill effect range that you're getting is 208. All right, and the total expansion is going to be quite a bit. So let's cast again. Sorry, got to get the perfect position and cast.
This one's for you.
Not only do we wipe out the black crosses, but 1, 2, 3, 4, and almost to the 5th square. All right, this is with a full set of range. Now you can squeeze out a little more if you cast enough times. So let me just show you. If you cast enough times, doing something like this, you can squeeze out just a little bit more range as well, which is really nice. So let me just maximize this ability. You can ignore the ability that's ticking down. That's just from the Peacemaker, because as you can see, the Peacemaker is glowing right now. That's because I have it on Valby to increase her overall damage. But let me just cast a couple more times so we can get this to the very maximum. So if you were to put in like as much range as humanly possible on good old Valby, all right, let's wait till everything dips off. Okay, cast. Not only do you almost cover the black cross on either side, but look at that. This is your range. This is your range the full way. So visually speaking, you can see that each increase in range results in more and more and more. Now, is there an ideal? Is there an ideal amount of range that you should have? Okay, if we're talking about the ideal amount of range that you should have in general skill expansion, and then there's actually very little difference between amplification control and maximize range, okay? So, all things considered, let me show you. This is with amplification control. Okay, casting visually. Amplification control takes you 1, 2, 3, and you'll be on this white line here a little bit beyond that. Okay, a little bit beyond that. I want you to take that, remember that, okay, because we're going to go all the way back. We're going to go all the way back, and we're going to do it again. Okay, but this time we're going to do it with maximize range, and I want you to see the difference, because a lot of people have been debating about the difference between the two. Some people believe that there's a soft cap. There isn't really, but when it comes down to percentages and how much you're actually looking at, okay, visually speaking, remember that we were here before? Maximize range takes us all the way beyond that, almost to the next square. So the difference that you're getting between amplification control and maximize range is roughly half of a square. half of a square for Valby at least. Okay, it's about here to here. That's the difference in the range that you're getting with a slight expansion on the left and right hand side. So is this worth it for you? You have to decide whether or not it is, because it does take away 20% skill power modifier. You may not think this is much, but there are some skills in the game that have very, very low skill power modifiers. Keelan skills, for example, for the acidic erosion, FYI. So because of that, you have to be careful about whether or not you're going to use maximize range or amplification control. While some people believe that it is just an optional kind of thing, I really do firmly believe that you have to think about it and you have to decide for yourself what is the ideal. For some individuals, they would prefer a more, how should I say this? They would prefer it if it wasn't, if the range was not so, if the range didn't come at the cost of skill power modifier. But for some people, they just cannot stomach that. So I think it is really down to personal choice. However, for me, in most of my builds, usually you'll notice that if the skill power modifier is above about 200%, I usually don't care too much about it, because you're going to gain more from raw skill power than from the modifier. Of course, the modifier is still going to help. But usually anything above 300%, 200% usually is like the borderline, but 300%, anything above that, I usually don't worry, even if I have to sap a little bit of it. So usually if the skill goes to about 300%, that's when I'll say, okay, it's worth sacrificing the range. But either way, this is a demonstration on maximize range. You now understand the calculation. You now understand visually how it works, okay? So I hope that you guys will not fall for any misinformation out there that might be saying, oh, it's the base multiplied by max expandable range. It doesn't really work that way, okay? What you got to understand is that how this calculation occurs is that you are taking the base, then you multiply it by your modifier, and then you add that to the base, okay? It's an addition, not a multiplicative factor solely on the base, okay? So that is it for maximizing range. I hope this helps teach you about skill effect range in the game. I hope that this video has helped you guys. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, especially if you enjoy my content. Don't forget to register me as your creator if you haven't already. Thank you very much. It is, unfortunately, my day to relax, so I will be going now. Thank you, and see you guys on the next one. Enjoy the video. I hope it helps. Catch you later.